Hello, today I'm going to be sharing some 5-star book predictions, aka books that are on my TBR right now and I think I'm going to get 5 stars that I think I'm going to absolutely love. So let's just get into it. Scooch over a little bit so I have room to put the book right here. Am I too far? I can't see. I think I hasn't updated. Okay. If you're wondering, I'm always looking down because I have my phone is connected to my camera. So I can see myself down here. Let's get started. The first book I think is going to be 5 stars is Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness. Ursula K. Le Guin is a science fiction writer who writes a lot about capitalism, but like alternative realities we could be living in except for capitalism, and she explores like what the world could be like if we didn't have current norms that we have, if that makes sense. I think the best way of illustrating this is that the only other book I've read by her is The Dispossessed, which imagines like an anarchist society on the moon. And it's just, oh, it's so fucking cool. Like her imagination is incredible and she describes stuff with such beautiful prose. So this book, anyway, the actual subject of the video, deals with gender and imagines like a non-capitalist society that has no notion of what gender is whatsoever, which just sounds so fucking interesting to me. Like, I can't even conceptualize that, so I'm excited to see what these like aliens think. And again, her writing is just beautiful. I know I'm gonna love this. Next we have another book that I think is gonna be beautiful, and that is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This is the book that she wrote after her husband and her daughter passed away, I believe within the same like year, within like a very small time frame essentially. This book just seems like it's gonna be heartbreaking. It deals with her grief. I remember there's one quote in here that's talking about how her husband, who I think his name is John, it doesn't say on the back, so I could be like completely wrong. There's no little blurb summarizing the book. I think her husband's name was John. I remember seeing one quote from this that's talking about like after her husband died, her first thought was like, oh, I have to talk about this with John, which is just heartbreaking and beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think I'm gonna love it, as I do with all these books, so I don't need to say that every time. This one I know nothing about. This is Just Kids by Patti Smith. This is a memoir. That is all I know. I don't know the subject of the memoir. I don't know who Patti Smith is, honestly. I just know that I've seen this on so many people's favorite lists, and I love a good memoir. I'm a whore for a good memoir. So I just think I'm gonna love this. I've heard that the writing's really beautiful. That's all I know, and I love the aesthetic of it, which certainly helps. I'm just convinced I'm gonna love it. I think Patti Smith is like a musician. I don't know. I'm like scared to say that because what if I'm wrong? This next one would be a reread actually, and that is the Hunger Games trilogy. This is, I need to make a video of books I want to reread because I've been thinking about it a lot recently. Let me pull out the first one. Okay. Ah, beautiful new book. I haven't pulled it out of that little box yet, so this is exciting. So the Hunger Games trilogy, I think everyone knows what happens in this book, but I'll summarize it anyway. Essentially, there are 12 different districts in this future version of America, and every year two people are chosen from each district to participate in the Hunger Games, where they fight to the death. I loved the Hunger Games when I first read it in middle school. I haven't reread it since, but I have watched all the movies multiple times, and especially with like the re-emergence of the Hunger Games in like recent years, given that the prequel series came out, everyone's been hyping up the Hunger Games again. Hence why I rebought the books. And I just know that I'm gonna love this even more the second go around. I just think that this is probably like a perfect series, honestly, and I'm really excited to read it again. Now I need to shove this back in the box. Another little comment I have about this is that they gave me like a journal. Why would I want that? Oh, they gave me a bookmark too. I didn't know that. That's fun. But yeah, this is like a journal. I'm not looking forward to this. I'm just gonna give it to this. This is a stupid waste of space. I'm sorry. This is not a 5-star prediction. Okay, moving on. This is another book that I know nothing about. It's pretty much just based off of vibes, so I think it's gonna be a 5-star book. That is Girls Against God by Jenny Hval. Look at this cover. Like, that is incredible. I love the name. I love the cover. Everything's drawing me in. And I can't tell you what this is about because even though I've read this little flap, it does not tell you. Let me read it to you. I'm sorry, I hate when people do this sometimes, but I feel like this is necessary for this book. Welcome to small town Norway. White picket fences run in strict rows and strict white Christian values run deep. Here a teenage woman gives into the lure of rebellion offered by the upstart black metal scene. She's a creature of obscure creativity and of a hatred she holds dear. She moves to Oslo, a site of weird convergences. A coven of witches cook up curses, Demons descend on a cafeteria. A time-traveling Edvard Munch joins a metal band, closely pursued by his pubescent model who has murder on her mind. Meanwhile, out deep in the forest, a group of squirrels loses their way and finds only terrible strangeness. Awful things happen in Aspic. I don't know that last word. I'm so sorry. That just, oh, that sounds great. It sounds crazy. I'm so into it. I think I'm gonna love this. Then we have a classic, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I put this one on the list because I was actually just talking about it with one of my friends, and he was talking about how it's like his favorite book and he's read it like 6 times, which makes me really want to pick it up because I've always like thought that I would love Frankenstein. I've put off picking up because it's a classic. I'm in law school, my brain is fried, I say this all the time, blah blah blah. But I'm convinced the writing's gonna be beautiful, and the way he was talking about it, the way that he says it like explores the human condition, like I'm just convinced I'm gonna love this book now. So this had to be on the list. I hate this cover. Do not look at this book and judge it by the cover. This is like the one time that saying really needs to be listened to. Lilith Prude by Octavia Butler. This is the ugliest, worst cover ever. Like, it looks like it's like some smutty romance book. This is science fiction about aliens. So, this is a bind-up of all 3 books in the series, which is the only reason, like, I'm dealing with the ugly cover. I just can't read this book out in public, which sucks. But essentially, this book is like a first contact with aliens thing, where there's like a war that destroys Earth, and then centuries later our main character is resurrected by unearthly beings. It says, driven by an irresistible need to heal others, the Oankali are rescuing our dying planet by merging genetically with mankind. But Lilith and all humanity must now share the world with uncanny, unimaginably alien creatures, their own children. I love Octavia E. Butler. This is the last series I have to read by her. I've read everything else that she's written, and I've loved most of it, or at least strongly liked most of it. Parable of the Sower and Kindred are 2 of my favorite books of all time. I have really high expectations for this, and I've heard really good things, so I think I'm gonna love it. Next is Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. This is a horror novel, so right off the bat, I'm into it. It follows a young father and a son who are devastated by the loss of their mother/wife, and they're traveling to her ancestral home where they must confront the terrifying legacy she has bequeathed, a family called the Order that commits unspeakable acts in the search of immortality. So there's some weird secret society, there's some witchcraft, there's some seeking eternal life. It all sounds very cool. I've also just heard really good things about this book, so I think I'm gonna love it. Next we have a non-fiction, and that is The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Woman by Kate Moore. This book talks about women who during the First World War, they would toil amid the glowing dust of their radium dial factories until they began to fall mysteriously ill. As the factories try to cover up the shocking secret, these determined shining girls suddenly find themselves embroiled in one of the biggest scandals of America's earliest 20th century history. Early 20th century. I don't know why it's okay. Just ignore me. I don't like that this book is yellowing already. I will say that. Like I've said before, I love like niche historical things, so I think this is really cool. I think the story sounds really interesting, and I want to pick it up. As simple as that. Simple as that. I think I love it. Easy as that. Next is Monstrilio by Eduardo Samano Cordova. This book sounds so weird, which makes me think it's going to be like the best book I read this year if I read it this year, which I am hoping to. Let me read a little bit of the back. After her son dies, Magos carves out a small piece of his lung, I mean come on, to save herself. Acting on fierce maternal instinct and the dubious logic of an old folktale, she nurtures the lung until it gains sentience, growing into the carnivorous little Monstrilio she keeps hidden within the walls of her decaying childhood home in Mexico City. That's all I'm gonna read. That's not the full description. You don't need the full description. That alone sounds so crazy. It sounds like an A24 movie or something like that. It just sounds so cool. I want to read this so bad. I really think this is going to be like an all-time favorite once I'm done with it. Next we have Minor Detail by, I'm holding my name across her name, Adania Shibley. This is a very, very short book. So it basically follows shortly after the 2 different timelines. One takes place shortly after the Nakba in Palestine, where there's an account of this woman who was raped and then killed by Israeli soldiers. And then it takes place 25 years in the future, where a woman reads about this account that's listed as a minor detail in a report and slowly becomes more and more obsessed with it because it happened like on her birthday or something like that. This book just seems like it's going to be absolutely brilliant, absolutely beautiful, absolutely heartbreaking. I've heard so many people adding this to their favorites of last year. So many people were raving about it. And as soon as I started looking up like books about Palestine, I immediately centered in on this one to read. It took me forever to get it because it was sold out everywhere, but it's finally in my hands now. I'm gonna read it soon, and I just know it's gonna be a new favorite. 2 more books. Second to last is Lapvona by Tesha Mashfeg. I feel like I've talked about this book so much and I still haven't picked it up. This book has several different elements that just scream me. First of all, painting on the cover, very me. Second of all, takes place in like a medieval town. Love that. Totally up my alley. Third, it follows a class struggle. So me. Fourth, it's a horror novel. Like, it just sounds so good. I haven't picked it up yet because I've been very iffy on Tesha Mashfeg's work. Some of it I've loved, some of it has just been fine, some of it I've hated. So I have no idea how I'm going to feel about this, but I have to read it. Like, all of that stuff is just screaming me. So I'm very excited about this one, even though I'm a little scared as well. And the last book on this list is Bright Young Woman by Jessica Knoll. This book essentially follows Ted Bundy's victims, but it doesn't mention him by name, it doesn't focus on him, it focuses on the victims, these bright young women that were killed. And what a bad job the police did because they're incompetent and we don't need them. Anyway, I don't need to get into a police abolition discussion right now, but I've heard a lot of praise about this book. This is another one that I feel like I saw on everyone's like best books of 2023 videos, so I just have to pick it up. I also, like, it's like a thriller. I don't read many thrillers, so I feel like I'm easily impressed by them. Like, the only one I can think of that I've read is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is like a very popular thriller. But I feel like with that genre, the more of it that you read, the more you notice the tropes and the more predictable the books come. But because I haven't read many thrillers, I feel like I'm gonna love any thriller that I read, if that makes any sense to anyone other than me. But I'm really hyped about this one. I've heard such great things. And there you go. Those are all the books on my shelf. Not all of the books. Those are some of the books on my TBR that I think are going to be 5 stars after I read them. Let me know if there's any of these books I should pick up sooner rather than later. Let me know what books are in your TBR that you think are going to be 5 stars. And I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.